Your soulmate's ex showed up again last night. Then something unexpected was revealed. My beloved child. Your soulmate's ex showed up again last night, and for one terrifying moment, it looked like the past had returned to take back everything your soulmate had been trying to build with you. The knock came late. Your soulmate wasn't expecting anyone, and when they opened the door, they froze. Standing there was the person they once believed they had completely left behind. But something was different. The ex wasn't smiling. They weren't asking for another chance. Their hands were trembling, and they carried a small envelope that seemed far more important than anything they could have said. Your soulmate immediately asked, "Why are you here?" The answer was quiet, "Because there's something you were never told." And suddenly, this wasn't about an old relationship anymore. Your soulmate refused to let the conversation become emotional. They made one thing clear immediately: the past was over, and their feelings were no longer there. But the ex didn't argue. Instead, they placed the envelope down and said something that completely changed the atmosphere. "I didn't come here to get you back. I came because you deserve to know why everything really ended." That sentence stopped your soulmate cold. For years, they had believed they understood exactly what happened between them. They thought the breakup came from incompatibility, mistakes, and feelings that simply faded. But according to the person standing there, someone else had quietly interfered. Someone had passed along information, created misunderstandings, and convinced both sides that walking away was the only choice. And when your soulmate asked who had done it, the ex hesitated. Why? Because the name inside that envelope was connected to someone your soulmate still trusted. Then came the detail nobody expected. Before your soulmate could open the envelope, the ex asked one strange question: "Is there someone in your life now who makes you feel like you finally understand what love is supposed to feel like?" Your soulmate didn't need time to answer. They thought of you. Your name came out naturally, almost instinctively, and the ex's expression changed immediately. Not jealousy. Relief. That reaction confused your soulmate even more. The ex quietly said, "Then maybe everything happened for a reason, but you still need to see this before you decide who deserves to remain in your life. Don't skip, because what happened next wasn't a romantic confession from the past." Your soulmate opened the envelope and found several printed messages, dates, and one photograph. But it was the final message on the last page that made their heart pound, because the person mentioned there wasn't a stranger. And somehow, your name appeared in the conversation too. The moment your soulmate saw your name on that page, everything inside them went still. The message had been written long before you knew anything about what was happening behind the scenes, yet there it was, a reference to you that seemed impossible to explain. Your soulmate looked up sharply and demanded to know where those messages had come from. The ex admitted they had discovered them accidentally while going through old records connected to the breakup. At first, they assumed the messages were meaningless. Then they noticed the dates. Someone had been discussing your soulmate's future before the relationship with the ex had even completely ended. Even stranger, that person seemed convinced that one day you and your soulmate would cross paths in a way neither of you could ignore. But the real shock was hidden in the photograph. Your soulmate turned it over and discovered a handwritten date along with 4 simple words: "They haven't met yet." That date came from a time when your soulmate was still desperately trying to repair the old relationship. How could anyone have known you would eventually become important? The ex finally revealed that someone close to the situation had noticed your soulmate repeatedly asking for something deeper. Someone who understood their silence, their fears, and the parts of themselves they rarely showed anyone. Then, somehow, information about you had entered the conversation. Your soulmate's eyes narrowed. This was no longer just about why an old relationship collapsed. Someone had known more about you than they should have, and they had kept that knowledge hidden for years. Then your soulmate noticed one message the ex apparently hadn't seen. It was buried beneath the others, printed faintly near the bottom of the final page. Your soulmate read it once, then again, because the meaning was impossible to dismiss. It suggested the person who interfered in the old relationship hadn't been trying to push your soulmate back toward their ex at all. They had been trying to prevent your soulmate from discovering something connected to you. The ex looked genuinely confused when your soulmate pointed it out. "That wasn't in the copies I saw," they whispered. Suddenly, both of them realized the envelope contained more than evidence about their past. Someone had deliberately added one final clue before it reached your soulmate. And when they examined the photograph more carefully, they discovered a name written beneath yours, a name your soulmate recognized immediately. Your soulmate stared at that second name until the room seemed to disappear around them. It belonged to someone they had trusted for years, someone who had always acted supportive whenever your name came up. That was what made the discovery so unsettling. The ex moved closer, looked at the photograph again, and suddenly remembered something they had never considered important before. During their relationship, this same person had repeatedly asked questions about your soulmate's future. Who they truly wanted, what kind of connection they were searching for, and whether there was anyone they could never completely forget. At the time, those questions seemed harmless. Now they sounded calculated. Your soulmate immediately reached for their phone, but the ex stopped them. "Wait. There's one more thing you need to know before you call anyone." The ex then revealed why they had really come back last night. 2 days earlier, that trusted person had contacted them unexpectedly after years of silence. They didn't apologize or ask about the past. Instead, they asked one disturbing question: "Has your ex started talking seriously about that person yet?" That person was you. The ex became suspicious and began searching through old messages, which eventually led to the envelope. But there was something even stranger. When the ex asked why your name mattered so much, the conversation ended immediately. No explanation. No response afterward. Your soulmate could feel the pieces beginning to connect, but they still didn't understand the motive. Why would someone interfere with one relationship years ago and then quietly watch what happened between your soulmate and you? That question finally led to the unexpected revelation. The ex admitted they had spent years believing your soulmate abandoned their relationship because someone better came along. But the evidence showed something completely different. Your soulmate had been manipulated into believing they were difficult to love, while the ex had been convinced your soulmate wanted to leave. Two separate stories had been fed to two vulnerable people. And hidden among those messages was a sentence explaining why the person interfering believed your soulmate would eventually make a life-changing decision once they learned the truth about you. Your soulmate's voice dropped as they asked, "What truth?" The ex slowly reached into their coat and pulled out a second envelope they had been afraid to reveal. Unlike the first, this one had never been opened, and written across the front, in unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "Only give this to them when they finally choose you." Your soulmate didn't touch the second envelope immediately. Those words, "Only give this to them when they finally choose you," felt too deliberate to be accidental. The ex explained that the envelope had been hidden with the old messages, sealed and untouched, with your soulmate's name written beneath the instruction. But there was another detail: the handwriting belonged to the same trusted person whose name appeared beside yours in the photograph. Your soulmate finally broke the seal. Inside wasn't a love letter or an apology. It was a short handwritten confession describing exactly how the old relationship had been pushed toward failure. The person admitted feeding both sides carefully altered information because they believed your soulmate was about to make a decision that would permanently separate them from you. Then your soulmate reached the middle of the letter and discovered why your name had appeared years earlier. Apparently, someone close to you had crossed paths with this trusted person and casually mentioned you during a conversation. Nothing romantic had happened. You hadn't secretly contacted your soulmate. But something said about your character, how deeply you cared, how seriously you treated loyalty, and how you refused to force connections that weren't genuine, stayed with that person. Later, when your soulmate described the kind of partner they secretly hoped to find someday, the similarities became impossible to ignore. Instead of allowing events to unfold naturally, the trusted person became strangely determined to control the outcome. But why interfere with the ex relationship if they already suspected you might eventually become important? The answer appeared near the bottom, and it stunned both your soulmate and the ex. The interference hadn't been designed to bring you and your soulmate together. It had been designed to keep your soulmate emotionally confused long enough that they might never recognize what they truly wanted. The person responsible feared that if your soulmate ever developed a genuine connection with you, they would finally stop allowing other people to influence their decisions. Your soulmate read that sentence twice. Suddenly, years of strange advice, discouragement, and carefully planted doubts looked completely different. But there was one final line beneath it, written later in darker ink: "If they have chosen you now, I failed, and there is something else they deserve to know." Your soulmate turned the page, expecting another confession. Instead, they found an address, a recent date, and instructions to arrive there alone. Your soulmate looked at the address, then back at the ex, wondering why this meeting had suddenly become so complicated. But the ex finally admitted something important: they already knew what was at that location. Earlier that evening, before showing up at your soulmate's door, they had gone there themselves. That was the real reason they looked shaken when they arrived. "I saw something there that changed everything I believed about our breakup," the ex confessed. Your soulmate demanded an explanation, but the ex hesitated. Whatever they had discovered wasn't simply another detail from their failed relationship. It involved the night they separated, and a conversation your soulmate had never known happened. The ex revealed that on the night of their breakup, someone had met with them privately and presented messages supposedly written by your soulmate. Those messages made it appear that your soulmate had already emotionally moved on and was interested in someone else. The ex believed them. They walked away without confronting your soulmate because they felt humiliated and betrayed. But last night, at that mysterious address, they found the original conversation records. The messages had been altered. Certain sentences were removed, others rearranged, and one completely false statement had been inserted. Your soulmate's expression changed immediately. For years, both of them had blamed each other for something neither had actually done. But that still didn't explain why the ex had suddenly returned now. Then came the revelation that made your soulmate forget everything else for a moment. The ex had discovered a recent message attached to those old records, written only 3 days ago. It said, "They're getting closer to the truth. If I don't explain what happened, someone else will." Your soulmate asked who had written it. The ex slowly placed their phone on the table and opened a photograph taken at the mysterious address. It showed the same trusted person connected to the old interference, but they weren't alone. Someone was standing beside them, partially hidden from the camera. Your soulmate zoomed in, expecting another stranger. Instead, they recognized something familiar about that person immediately. And when the ex revealed when the photograph had actually been taken, your soulmate realized the secret from last night was much bigger than either of them had imagined. The photograph had been taken only hours before the ex appeared at your soulmate's door. That changed everything. This wasn't an old secret accidentally resurfacing, it was still unfolding. Your soulmate enlarged the image again, studying the partially hidden person until one small detail caught their attention. A bracelet they had seen before. The realization hit instantly. That person had recently been around your soulmate, casually asking whether they were happy, whether they still thought about the past, and whether someone new had become important to them. Those questions suddenly felt far less innocent. The ex admitted they had overheard part of the meeting at that address, including one sentence that made them finally decide to come forward. "If they learn what really happened, they'll never trust us again." Your soulmate turned toward the ex and asked the question that had been building since the moment they arrived, "Why tell me now?" For the first time, the ex's expression softened. They admitted they hadn't returned because they wanted another chance. They returned because discovering the altered messages forced them to face an uncomfortable truth. They had blamed your soulmate for years without ever asking what actually happened. And now someone appeared to be manipulating the present just as they had manipulated the past. The ex refused to watch that happen again. Then they revealed another detail from the meeting. Your name had been spoken clearly. Not as someone responsible for anything, but as the person your soulmate was becoming emotionally serious about. Someone at that meeting was worried that your presence would make your soulmate start questioning old lies. But the biggest surprise came when the ex played a short recording captured outside the room. A familiar voice could be heard saying, "The ex can never find out why we separated them." Then another voice answered, "It doesn't matter anymore. The real problem is what happens when they tell the truth about last night." Your soulmate replayed those words, confused. What truth about last night? The ex had already explained the meeting, the photograph, and the old manipulated messages, or so it seemed. Then the ex lowered their eyes and admitted there was one thing they had deliberately left out. Before coming to your soulmate's home, someone had followed them from that address and confronted them privately. And what that person revealed about your soulmate's past was the reason the ex had arrived carrying those envelopes in the first place. The ex finally described that confrontation. As they were leaving the address last night, a car pulled up beside them and someone stepped out, the same partially hidden person from the photograph. They didn't threaten the ex or demand the envelopes back. Instead, they said, "Before you tell your ex anything, you should know why those messages were changed." Then came a revelation neither of them expected. Years ago, your soulmate had been preparing to make a major emotional decision, but people around them believed they were acting too quickly. Rather than speaking honestly, those people interfered. They twisted conversations, created doubts, and convinced the ex that walking away was necessary. What began as someone trying to protect your soulmate eventually became a web of lies nobody knew how to undo. Your soulmate listened without interrupting, but one question mattered more than everything else: why had your name appeared in recent conversations? The ex finally gave a clear answer. Since you entered your soulmate's emotional world, they had started behaving differently. They questioned old assumptions. They stopped accepting other people's opinions without evidence. Most importantly, they began talking openly about what they actually wanted from love. The people who had controlled the old story realized their secrets might finally be exposed. That was why the ex had suddenly been contacted. Someone wanted to make sure the past remained buried before your soulmate became serious enough about you to examine it. But instead of staying silent, the ex had brought every piece of evidence directly to your soulmate. Then your soulmate asked whether the person outside the address had revealed anything else. The ex went quiet and reached for their phone again. There was one final voice message recorded during that confrontation, and until this moment, they had been afraid to play it. A nervous voice filled the room: "Tell them the breakup wasn't the only thing we lied about. Tell them what happened after they started asking about the person they care about now." Your soulmate's face changed at those words. The person they cared about now was you. The recording continued for several seconds before another sentence came through clearly: "They were supposed to receive something months ago, but we made sure it never reached them." Your soulmate immediately asked what had been withheld. The ex opened their bag one more time and pulled out a sealed package with your soulmate's name written across the front. Your soulmate took the sealed package with trembling hands, but before opening it, they noticed something that made them look straight at the ex. The postmark was from months ago. This package had been meant to reach your soulmate long before last night, yet somehow it had been intercepted and hidden. The ex explained that the person who confronted them had finally handed it over out of guilt, saying the secret had already gone too far. Your soulmate carefully broke the seal. Inside were several pages, but the first one immediately caught their attention because it mentioned you. Not as part of the old breakup. Not as someone responsible for the confusion. It described a conversation about you that your soulmate was never supposed to discover. The pages revealed that months earlier, someone close to your soulmate had learned how strongly their feelings for you were growing. Instead of telling your soulmate what they knew, they began quietly questioning people around them, trying to determine whether your connection was serious. One message read, "They talk differently whenever that person is mentioned." Another admitted, "If this continues, we won't be able to keep the past hidden." Suddenly, your soulmate understood why certain people had discouraged them whenever they considered reaching out to you. The warnings had never really been about you. They were afraid that getting closer to you would give your soulmate enough confidence to revisit old questions, and once those questions started, the manipulated breakup with the ex would eventually be exposed. But one final page changed the entire mood. It contained a recent handwritten note from the ex, the same ex now sitting across from your soulmate. Your soulmate looked up, stunned. The ex admitted they had added it only hours earlier, after discovering